about throughout the week. Want to remind you that when you type something in that box, first of all, make sure you reference it. If you're watching something that you're seeing on the screen next to it, make sure that you tell me what it is that you're watching so I know how to reference it. And if you have a specific question for a specific doctor, I love the fact that you guys are saying this is a question for Dr. Tarbox, this is one for Angela Persicki, this is one for Dr. Doreen. All of those different things you can specify. And remember, that's totally free to you. There is no login, there is no giving us a credit card number. We don't know who you are. We don't have a way to get back in touch with you unless you include that in your email, which you can do. We have a way of editing that out before we show it to the rest of the viewers at home. So please participate. We hope that you will. And I'm noticing I'm having one of those mornings, right? It's Tuesday morning. And my technology has decided to do all kinds of things on me. We have gremlins again. I thought we were done with that after Halloween. Speaking of which, we did have a show on Friday, but we didn't get a chance to talk about Halloween. We'll see if we have an opportunity to talk about that today. And I'd love to know from you guys what worked for you, what didn't work for you. All right? Yes, Emily's letting me know, and that's what I was referring to. In any case, we hope that you will participate with us. I'm going to see if I can't get my technology back on track. Let's see if I can. There, Emily, am I good? Oh, I'm getting better at technology. Okay, so I like to remind you at the start of the show that I am not an expert in autism, nor am I an expert in technology, clearly, as was just defined in that moment. But I am a parent, and I'm a proud parent of a young man who is on the autism spectrum, diagnosed with classic regressive autism at the age of 2.5. He's now 10, about to be 10.5, and that little boy is the light of my life. Can I just tell you? And so grateful for all the help and support that we have received over the years. And I can tell you that we got good help and support because we found out about it. Other parents told us, here, you should know about this, and here's this other thing that you should know about. And that's why I sit in this chair, because I have a lot to pay back and a lot to pay forward. If you have questions and you need some help and support and not feeling like you're alone in this journey, I hope that you'll call upon me and the larger team that's here to see if we can't give you some support, some direction, and a place to go. Of course, no one gives individual child-specific or individual-specific advice here, because in this format that's not possible. But having said that, there's so much that we can talk about that can help you to progress. And that's really the name of the game here. We want to help everybody to be able to have access to what will be helpful to them, whether that's finding out about diet, finding out about biomedical, finding out about behavioral treatment, figuring out how to fund all that, right? Or just how to get to sleep and not have to deal with the ongoing stress. We talk about all of that and ever so much more here. So we hope that you will interact with us. We have a lot of special guests that are going to be joining us today and throughout this week, and some really amazing things happening in the coming weeks. So without further ado, it is time for us to feature the jargon of the day. You guys know this drill. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to put it in perspective in our lives right now, so that we can begin to understand these terms that people use when referring to us or to our kids, and we can know, okay, this is what they're talking about, and this is why it's important to me. So our term today, one of my favorites, right? Because it's so convoluted, but once you finally get it, the lights come on and you go, okay, this is actually very useful to me. And it all goes hand in hand with what we're talking about this week. So it's EO. I know, doesn't it sound like, isn't that what the Michael Jackson thing at Disneyland, the 3D, isn't that what the name of it is? The movie, I don't know. I was very confused. And then when we break it down, let's look at our actual definition. EO stands for establishing operation. Oh, doesn't that make it clear? Establishing operation is a motivating operation that establishes or increases the effectiveness of some stimulus, object, or event as a reinforcer, thus increasing the current frequency of all behavior that has been reinforced by that stimulus, object, or event in the past. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why we take on the jargon, because this, when I was underslept and my child was recently diagnosed and hitting his head on the kitchen floor, this would have made me so mad that I would have picked up the computer and probably thrown it. Because what in the heck does that mean? Let's go to our working definition to see if we can't figure this out. Establishing operation is some internal or external variable. It's not that much better, but don't give up, because we'll pare it down. Some internal or external variable that makes particular reinforcers even more reinforcing, thus increasing the likelihood that you will engage in certain behaviors associated with accessing those reinforcers. I like to think of it as what's on board. An establishing operation is what's on board when you start, because we want to reinforce behavior that is desirable, right? Sometimes we make the mistake of reinforcing behaviors that we don't want to see more of. There was my son hitting his head on the kitchen floor. I don't want to make that happen more often, right? Except I was. When he would hit his head on the kitchen floor, I would go over and pick him up and cuddle him and rub his head and sing to him and rock him and tell him everything was going to be okay and give him a treat, right? How many reinforcers did we count in there? He got attention, he got access to me, he got access to stuff, he escaped whatever it was that I was asking him to do, right? And it's possible that there was an element of him hitting his head on the floor that actually felt good because he might have had a headache. I don't know. He was little and he was nonverbal, but he had access to all these things. I was reinforcing it. So I was making it more likely that it was going to continue to happen. And boy, it was working, because he was doing it pretty much on a daily basis, where at some point in the day, something would happen and he would just throw himself on the floor and hit his head on the floor until he cried, and I picked him up and he got all that tender, loving attention and treats. Okay, so when we talk about establishing operations, we want to do something to make it more likely that the reinforcer works in that moment. So if it's something we don't want to see increased, behavior like hitting the head on the floor, we don't want to supercharge those reinforcers. Think about things that you do want to see more of, that maybe you want to see your child go pee-pee in the potty. You're working on the toilet training, and pee-pee in the potty is a big, big deal. Well, one of the things that we want to do to make sure that it's more likely that it's going to happen is we're going to give the child water to drink. That's going to be our establishing operation. And it may be that we got to take it back even a little bit further, that the child doesn't want to drink water. They're not happy about drinking the water. So first we feed them salty snacks. We're going to give them popcorn or pretzels or something that has a lot of salt on it. So then they're going to want to drink. Then they drink. So I've got all that on board. It's going to make it more likely that the child is going to need to urinate. I've set myself up for a certain amount of success. So when we talk about establishing operations, it's like, what else is on board? If I'm extra tired and something happens, that's what's on board, I'm tired, then we're going to get a certain set of responses, right? Whereas if, I've had good sleep and I had some time to myself and I had some time to de-stress, that's my establishing operation, and I'm more likely to get to another class of behaviors. So we start to think about establishing operations, and I think as a parent or as a teacher or even as an individual talking for myself, think of it as, how can I set this up for success? What else can I have on board that's going to make it more likely that we're going to get the behavior that we want to see? So if I want to be able to concentrate, I might say to myself, wow, I'm really going to take care of myself and make sure that I get some more sleep. I'm going to make sure that I had something healthy for breakfast, right? Those are establishing operations that I'm going to power pack this to be more likely that I'm going to be successful. And we can also think in terms of a parent, when the child is having a meltdown and we go, okay, what's on board here? What else is going on besides this moment in which I asked the child to do? Oh, child hasn't had any lunch yet. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Believe me, that's happened to me before. And you look at it and you go, okay, well, did I set this moment up for success, or did I set this moment up for the meltdown? It's not a judgment thing. It's not all right, you messed up royally. But when you start to be mindful of it, this can become a tool for you that you go, oh, I'm going to get some things on board here that are going to make it more likely that we're going to have success and get to that progress. And these other things that I've been doing that weren't setting me up for success, I'm going to minimize or get rid of those. So establishing operation can be for something, you're wanting to increase a behavior. What behavior do you want to increase? So keep in mind, you could have the wrong establishing operations and end up with tantrums, or you could have the right establishing operations and end up with an individual who's learning and making progress. That's the key. What else is on board? What is on board here? Okay, so we always have a question for you. Ready for this? And we hope that you will answer the question on Facebook, and we'll get a chance a little bit later on to check in to see what your answers are. What is your favorite holiday tradition? And remove all the, oh yeah, but we can't do that anymore because, whatever. Just be pure about what's your favorite holiday tradition. Because if we work and are careful, and we got enough time, we're starting this way early this year, we can build up towards making your favorite tradition a possibility. If we have to do some systematic desensitization for somebody in the family, or if we have to do a whole bunch of planning or a whole bunch of antecedent modification, getting there beforehand to see if we can make the whole thing work, we absolutely can do that. Now, we always have a topic every week, and our topic this week, because I said to you last week, I said, do you hear it? Do you hear it? It's the holiday treadmill that's starting. And I think rather than trying to poo-poo it and say, no, it's just the first week in November, we're not on the holiday treadmill. This year, the tactic that I am taking and that I'm encouraging everybody to be a part of with me is that let's do a whole bunch of antecedent modifications. You know what an antecedent is? It's the thing that happens beforehand. So let's see if we can't sculpt and plan and put things in place so that we can have the holiday season we've dreamt about. And everything's a little bit early this year. I'm not sure about that, whether Thanksgiving is a little bit early this year. I know that the time between, maybe it isn't, maybe it's a little bit late. The time between Thanksgiving and Christmas is shorter this year than it is most years. So I guess Thanksgiving is a little bit late. And Hanukkah is starting on the night before Thanksgiving. So that is way early this year. So lots going on, but we're still early enough. We don't have to get stressed, but we could look at this and say, what establishing operations can I put in place so that I have a good holiday, and so that everyone in my family, for the siblings who have been having issues because one other sibling is on the spectrum, making sure that everyone can have that good holiday season. So that's really what we're going to be talking about this week, is what strategies can we put in place. And then I'm going to give you the heads up that next week we're talking about smart gifting. What are the gifts that we can get for the therapists in our life, for the teachers and the teachers' aides and the people that we know we want to make them feel special and feel gifted. And so that will be next week. And let me just tell you already, we have some amazing giveaways. If you have a business and you have something that you want to show that's a great gift for a therapist, let us know, but be willing to give us some stuff to give away to our viewers, right? And then the week after is the Toy Festival. And with the Toy Festival, we are going to be giving away some amazing toys and games. So all of that very exciting. So this week, some of the different things are today, and let's start with today. In just a few minutes, we're going to take a break, and Alex Plank will be here with us from wrongplanet.net. I know a couple of you have been writing in and asking questions about college. Alex is going to be talking specifically about going to college. A little bit later on today, we have a healthy eating tip for how antecedent modifications that we can put in place for the holidays, things that we can be doing right now so that we can be eating really healthily during the holidays. And then in the second hour, Matt Asner from Autism Speaks will be here with us answering your questions. He's an autism dad, and thrilled to have him here with us. So it's an exciting show today, and the next couple weeks, the holiday treadmill is going to start spurting gifts. So let's think of it that way. All right, we're going to get there ahead of it this year and not stress ourselves out. Doesn't that sound like a good plan? We're going to take a break, and we will be back with Alex Plank. Stick with us.
Say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, it's Lisa Ackerman back for What's Left. I got a nice guest with me today.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
We're gonna make some healthy banana nut bread with no eggs. Maybe what you could do, Kristen, I'm gonna add the flour.
Okay.
If you can get the bananas ready just by mashing them for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and add our flour. Here's 1 cup of my all-purpose flour. I'm gonna go ahead and add my baking soda and my salt and my xanthan gum. A 1/2 teaspoon of the salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and xanthan gum. Xanthan gum is great, but you can also use gar gum. We can use flaxseed meal if we want to use a different binder. Remember, this is what helps keep your gluten-free flour held together. We're going to also add 1 cup of our organic cane sugar. There's a lot of variations on this as well. I can use maple syrup and honey and cook with it. That's a great way to go, but be careful, you may need to add some more flour into the mix. How are you doing, monkey?
I think it's
Perfect.
I can now say I officially mashed bananas.
You mashed the monkey bananas. So I'll go ahead and take your mashed monkey banana. Thank you very much. All we did, Kristen, lovely Vanna White, is mash up the bananas, getting ready to go for our dessert. So let's go ahead and add egg replacers. We've gotten a lot of feedback from y'all about not using eggs, and I know eggs are a big issue. So we talked about this. We're going to use a little flaxseed meal and arrowroot starch, and I love these, but whenever we use a dry ingredient, and you know an egg has a lot more moisture than these, so we want to be a little kind and maybe add a little water or more fruit or a coconut milk or something along those lines. So for this recipe, it calls for 2 eggs. So I'm actually going to use 1 teaspoon of each of these. Look at me using measuring devices. And add that into my mix, and that will be in place of any eggs that you would want in that recipe. Next up is the cinnamon and the nutmeg. This gives it the yum. Now, for kids who are really sensitive to different spices, you may want to go a little lighter on these. So for nutmeg, this calls for 1/8 of a teaspoon, so you really want to go light on the nutmeg. In fact, that's one you could probably cut back a little bit for kids who are really sensitive to smell or taste. And cinnamon, I love cinnamon. Did you know cinnamon has some antibacterial properties?
Yeah.
I love this stuff. So anytime I can add cinnamon to whatever, if your kid tolerates it, it's a great antibacterial. So I love that stuff. If you have a nut allergy, forget the nuts. But these are the chopped walnuts per the recipe. This is a 1/2 cup of chopped walnuts, and I've got my lemon zest. And again, I love lemon zest. My son has grown to love it as I cook for him more often. And then the last thing that we're going to add here in our recipe is the 1/2 cup of oil. Thanks, Vanna White.
You're welcome.
And we'll go ahead. I use grapeseed. You can also use the different Earth Balance soy-free margarine melted.
Okay.
That would be great. That gives a good texture. Awesome. Our mix is ready to go, Kristen. I'm going to put a little oil in the pan. And I love the consistency. Like you were saying, this looks a little bit like a thick pancake mix. Are you ready?
I think so. I just want to make sure I'm not the one that doesn't make it come out.
So again, it is a bit of a thicker texture. I'm going to go ahead and grab as much as I can out of my little mixing pan here. So let's go ahead and put this in the oven, 350 degrees for about 40 to 50 minutes, depending upon your oven and how long you want it to cook.
Ooh.
And this is what the finished product looks like. Yum!
Looks
so
yummy.
For me, this is probably one of the most nutritious, fun things that I can eat. I'm going to have you try some so you can tell me what you think.
I'll be happy to be the guinea pig.
Such
It
a great
smells
texture.
so good.
So there you go.
Yummy.
I know. But go ahead and give it a shot and tell me what you think.
Let me see. That was really good.
Yeah.
It's
give me
moist,
some of
too.
that. Thank you for joining us here at Autism Live. We've got a great, wonderful snack or breakfast that we can serve up for our kids. That's healthy, ready to go. Kristen, thanks for joining me this
Thank you
time.
for having me.
Love
That was
having you
fun.
here. And we'll see you next time at Autism Live. What's left? If you have any questions, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com or hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. And if you need more recipes while we're in between shows, go off to the TACA website, tacanow.org. Click on gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free recipes and have a ball. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest in the studio with us right now is Alex Plank from wrongplanet.net. He is the creator of that wonderful site, and we hope that you will go there to check that out. It's a wonderful resource. If you are on the spectrum or have a young individual who's on the spectrum, great resource. And Alex is going to talk with us a little bit today about the college experience.
Sure. So first of all, I think this is something that a lot of parents are very afraid of. You know, your kids could be in elementary school and you're still thinking about college. You might not even be born yet and you're thinking about college. So it's a daunting thing, and parents want the best for their children, of course. Obviously, autism adds another complexity to that because you worry about your child living independently, being able to cope without you there to fix things and to solve the problems. However, and I think this is something that is incredibly important to stress, it's important to be able to let go, because college is a very important learning experience, not because of what you learn in the classes so much, but mainly because of the life lessons you learn and the independent living skills that you have to develop. It's sort of a sink or swim sort of proposition. And I know a lot of you want to sort of go to a community college maybe and sort of test the waters, and maybe that's a good idea for certain cases, but I think that the best thing to do is to send your kid off to a school that's at least a little bit far away so you aren't there to save him. And the worst case scenario is the kid fails all his classes and drops out, you know, and then you go to the community college. But I think that most of the time that's not going to happen, even in cases where you're deeply afraid that will happen. When I was applying to colleges, my parents were really worried, and I went to school 2.5 hours away from where my parents live, so they never came to visit. My parents don't like driving more than 30 minutes. But initially, yeah, I had a lot of troubles, and I failed things, and I failed a class or two. And I learned from those mistakes, and it's one of those things where you need to learn those lessons as someone who's developing, someone in that age range. And dorm life is another thing that you need to learn. So while you may have a kid who's having trouble, can't take care of things without you there, it could be that the child is doing that because they haven't really been forced to adapt. And I think it's really important to let go. Second, I think that your child needs a school. Sorry, I just misspoke.
That's all
wow,
right.
that was funny. Second, I think it's really important to choose a school based on your interest. So whatever the child's interest is, the high schooler, I guess young adult is more of a correct term. Whatever this young adult's special interest is, choose a college that has that special interest as a concentration where you can major in that subject and has a good program in it. Second, you need to think about disability services at the universities. However, you could find a school with great disability services program, and halfway through the school year, they could quit and they could hire someone else who doesn't know anything about autism and starts to make it hard for your kid to be able to take extended time on tests, has to fill out forms. That happened to me.
Really?
I had the awesomest disability services administrator. She ran the program great, and all of a sudden she got hired away for more money through another university, and the guy who came in all of a sudden started requiring all these forms you had to fill out. Let me tell you something. For someone who's bad executive functioning, adding forms into the mix, which the other kids don't even have to do. You don't have to fill out a form to take a test. And the worst part is that they told me that I had to do it for pop quizzes. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to do it in advance for a pop quiz? Because they're like, well, you're just going to have to figure it out. What I found is the best thing to do is to speak one-on-one with your professors. If you're a kid in school, the best thing to do is to go up to your professor and say, listen, you know, there's a lot of red tape. Maybe we can work something out so I can take extended time and not have to worry about the disability services. I tried this with one professor. I was really at a loss of what to do. I was freaking out because I hate it. And she's like, yeah, you're right. There is a lot of red tape. Yeah, it's a great idea. I hate dealing with those guys.
Awesome. So great. So you found the solution to it, and the solution made it easier for you to do what you needed to do.
Exactly.
Remarkable. Well, I think all of these suggestions are wonderful, and I want to ask some questions about that, but I want to take a break first.
Okay.
So let's go to a break, and when we come back, and if you have questions about some of these things, you can be writing them in on our live feature on autism-live.com as well. Stick with us. More with Alex Plank.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. For November, we're going to be working on memory with our kids, and what better way than doing a scavenger hunt. The materials you'll be needing for this activity are a camera, cardstock, scissors, glue, and whatever objects you want your child to be hunting for. Step 1, you're the hunter. Find all the objects you want your child looking for and take photos of them. Now that you've collected all the objects you want your kids hunting for later, print out the images and then cut them out and glue them on a cardstock just so they're organized and isolated. Now that the scavenger hunt template is done, put all the objects back where they belong. Remember, we're working on memory, so put them in places that your kids would normally find them. You want them to be successful. We'll make this one really easy to find. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity with your kids. Remember, the scavenger hunt is supposed to be a fun way to work on memory. Well, until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're talking about college. One thing that was brought up is an antecedent modification, which I think is an overly complex term for something simple.
Yes.
Basically, one thing that I think is important to deal with before you go to college is to test it out. A lot of colleges offer a little program where you get to go stay in a dorm for a camp, and you can stay with people that are going to be at your school, and so you make friends before you even get to school. And you get to learn what dorm life is like. And I think that's an important thing that helped me make that transition. So research, see if your college offers that type of transition program. And it's for anyone. It's a cool camp that you just go and you get to do all this cool stuff. It's not specifically for autism. They have this for all the kids.
And you participated in that before you went away to school.
It's funny because I hadn't really thought about that for a while, and it really did help because I learned a lot from just that 1 week. Another thing about dorm life is it can be a daunting, stressful thing to think about because you're worried it'll be too noisy, you're worried you won't be able to deal with it. Here's the thing, you can make modifications to your dorm to make it quiet in there. You can use soundproof tape around the door edges to seal the gaps, and that significantly will cut down on noise. Wear earplugs at night if you're worried about getting woken up. I was on, every single school has what they call the party floor, and I happened to unfortunately be placed on the party floor.
Oh my goodness.
And in the entire dorm, there's like 20 dorm buildings, and they put me on the building with the party floor. I mean, they didn't know.
Right. But you survived it.
Yeah.
Did you stay in the dorms the whole time that you were in college, or at some point did you move off campus?
Well, at one point I lived with a girlfriend off campus, but that was later on. I, for the most part, lived on campus. I think it's nice to live on campus because you have that social aspect. It's very helpful for learning social skills. You can be immersed in this world of people who are all trying to make friends. If you're someone who's socially shy, you have other people with that social pressure to get you out of your shell. People knock on your door and say, hey, do you want to go do this? You want to go play basketball? We're about to go do this. The floor is about to go on a field trip or something.
There's also that environment of knowing that where your meals are coming from, that the dining hall is within a certain distance, and I don't know if all colleges are like this still, but you can, decide I want to eat some of my meals there, or I want to eat all of my meals there, and sometimes that can minimize the amount of time you have to spend on things like shopping and then cooking and then cleaning up afterwards. So
For sure.
For some individuals, that's awesome.
You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
There's many different restaurants on campus. I went to George Mason University, great school. Tons of different places to go eat. And you get meal plan program that works at any of these places.
Yeah.
There's even a convenience store, which is incredibly overpriced.
Right.
Where you can buy Fruit Loops for $7.
Right, on your meal plan. And more and more schools are having meal plans that will cater to individual dietary needs too. So that if somebody needs something, there's a lot of people with celiac and other issues. If somebody needs something gluten-free, you want to check that out with the dining halls, because a lot of them will cater to special diets.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's diabetic or allergies.
I didn't have that problem. I eat everything. So
what a lovely thing. We aren't all that lucky.
well, I don't know if it's lucky. But.
Well, I remember going off to college in the fall of 1980, before you were on the planet, I'm sure. And that's when I started college, and I was a vegetarian. And I remember explaining that to the people at the dining hall, and somebody saying to me, I don't know what that is. So that was the dark ages of dining halls. It's not like that anymore.
Well, it depends on where you go. There are certain dining halls that are stuck in those ages, and certain schools have worse dining than others. Like, the University of Virginia is notorious for having horrible dining halls.
Really?
Yeah.
Remarkable. Okay, so any other tips that you have for going off to college? Let's talk some more.
I think one thing that's important to realize is that I was incredibly stressed throughout high school, because if you didn't turn something in on time, you didn't get credit for it. In college, professors are much more forgiving and willing to work with you. They tell you in high school that it's like not going to be easy in college, and that they're going to mess with you, and you're just not going to survive unless you turn everything in on time. Here's the thing: I was able to survive by working with professors, and there's one class, Modern Chinese Cinema, which I was interested in taking, but apparently modern Chinese cinema modern apparently means any time the camera was invented, which doesn't make sense why they would call it that. But that professor worked with me to turn in stuff late, and I got it incomplete, and then they changed it to A or B, I forget what it was.
Okay. I used to teach college, and I have also taught junior high and high school. And I know as a teacher in all three of those formats, you have different structures and different strictures, and college professors have much more leeway to make a decision for an individual than, say, a high school teacher or a junior high school teacher, because you're allowed to. So I can concur that I got to be much more lenient as a college professor and work with an individual on their individual case if they communicated. But communication
you gotta talk with the professor. Of course, it's really important to make sure that the professor is aware of the issues that you face. If you think that they will impact your performance in the class.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, if you're really good at the subject and can complete the test real quick and don't get distracted because you're focused on that subject, then you don't really need to disclose it to that professor.
Right.
Although if you don't disclose it earlier on and then later on something does occur, it's going to be harder to deal with. So so it might be better just to let them know in the beginning. It's really a case-by-case basis. You can do it based on your own intuition.
Well, that brings up a whole other subject about when people go off to college and whether they disclose to their teachers, whether they disclose to their roommates, whether they disclose to their RA. Did you disclose when you went off to college?
Well, there's no reason to just randomly walk around telling people that you're on the autism spectrum.
Right.
Just the first thing you say is, "Hi, I'm Alex, I have Asperger's." I think that's incredibly silly.
Yeah.
It's not like you say, "Hi, I'm Alex, I have blonde hair." I mean, obviously that's obvious, so you wouldn't need to disclose that, but you don't need to say that about yourself. You can also do this thing that people call a partial disclosure, where you say, "I'm bad at this," or I have trouble with directions, or I have trouble focusing. That is actually more helpful, because it actually communicates what you're struggling
What the
with,
issue
and
is,
people
yeah.
don't care.
Yeah.
People are accepting of that. You don't need to say Asperger's or give it a label, or
Right.
autism rather is what the term is now.
Because honestly, I love that, Alex, because a lot of times if you say to somebody, I'm noticing this with my child, if I say to somebody, oh, my son has autism, that comes with a preconceived packaged notion in their head, and they start making assumptions, and a lot of times the assumptions are really wrong.
The problem with that is that when you put that label on it and you start to think based on that diagnosis, you end up making a self-fulfilling prophecy. You
Right.
think, oh, well, my child's going to be bad at this, or oh, I'm going to be bad at this, if you're the person on the spectrum who's
Right.
talking about it. So I think the best thing to do is to really not focus on that so much as focus on what your strengths are.
Right.
And in college, that's the best thing about college. You get to take the classes that you're interested in. That's why I hated high school. High school, you had to take all these generalized classes, which you still have to do to some extent in college, but you get to take mainly classes that you're interested
Right.
in. And you take multiple levels of your interest. And it's
Right.
great because people who are obsessed with video games can major in video game design.
Isn't that a lovely
And you
thing?
can make, $150,000 a year doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a way to feed your passion and learn how to live a life pursuing your passion.
It's funny because if you think that they would focus in high school more on giving people the ability to focus on their interests. High school is really not designed to allow people to succeed in a specific field. It's a very generalized,
Yeah.
antiquated. Bill Gates said famously that that they should get rid of high school, and
Yeah.
yes.
Well, a lot of people.
And I don't think that's exactly what he said. I think he mainly said that it shouldn't be.
Well, I think a lot of people know that something is broken in the high school system, and now there's more charter schools which are trying to
Yeah.
address specific things, but that isn't available.
Yeah, it's
for
not.
everyone.
It's too bad because I would have
Yeah.
loved to have gone to a charter school. I went to a private school for a little bit, but a lot of times with college, though, the most learning that you do is learning about the social interactions and learning about life. Because I feel like being on your own in that college situation, that's why I think community college is really sort of not as rewarding an experience. It's not as valuable an experience because it's just like an extended version of high school. You go back home to your parents and
Right.
you're not learning anything. And if you don't allow your kids, and I know it's hard to let go, and especially as a parent of someone where you have that excuse, oh, well, my kid has this disability, he won't be able to do that. That's not true.
Yeah.
You don't know what he'll be able to do until you put him out there and see if he's able to do it. And obviously there's going to be some kids who don't do well, and then you can
Yeah.
assess based on that.
Well, you know the joke that I always say that
I don't.
My son, we always talk about when he goes off to college, and we've talked about him going to MIT. That's what we always joke about, him going to college. I say, when you go to college and when mommy gets an apartment around the corner from where you go to college.
No.
That's the joke that I always say.
That's the worst thing.
So on the day that my son goes off to college, you'll lay in front of my car so that I don't go and do that, Alex.
Well, no,
You'll
I
stop me.
would rather not lie on the ground, especially in front of a
Moving vehicle. But
well.
you'll stop me. You'll talk me out of it when that happens.
Well, I hope that I can talk you out of it now. And that
Right.
You'll remember this.
Because you'll have like a good, what we have
Discuss- and I
like, we have
think
like
that-
8 years.
Do we have any
Talk-
questions or?
Not yet. We don't have any questions. But if you do have questions for Alex about this topic, feel free to write them in. The live feature is open right now. We should take a break and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about college and the social aspect of college and get some advice from Alex about how he managed to not only get through that, but you thrived in that environment, didn't you, Alex?
Oh yeah, I mean for the most part, I didn't get perfect grades in college, but no one looks at your transcript.
But
when
the
you apply for a
social
job.
aspect of it, though, I'm referring to, you did quite well. You managed to.
Not at first.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that and figure out what it was that changed.
Eventually,
that
yes,
allowed
you're
you
right.
To, okay. All right, so very fascinating conversation. Stick with us. We'll be right back with Alex Blank.
Hello, fellow activists. Last week, we talked about the first step to empowerment. Accept and embrace this challenge. Sometimes you have people that support you in your denial. Maybe it's your husband. Maybe it's your mother. When I expressed my concern to my pediatrician about Wyatt losing language around the age of 2, his response, maybe he's a late talker. He's a boy. Let's wait and see. But what about the temper tantrums? What about the fact that he put his head through the kitchen window? What about the bite marks and scratches all over my arms and chest? He said he's probably just frustrated that he can't express himself. Let's wait and see. But autism doesn't afford us that luxury. Of course, I was relieved with my pediatrician's reassurances, but I should have gone with my gut, because if I had, I could have gotten a diagnosis 2 years earlier, and I lost 2 valuable years that could have been spent on early intervention. And finally, when Wyatt was diagnosed, he was misdiagnosed. But of course, part of that was my problem too. I lied in a lot of those parent questionnaires so things looked better. I can't turn back the hands of time, but I can recommend that you face this challenge head on. Denial prevents us from walking a path we eventually will have to walk anyway. The sooner you face the truth, the sooner you can help your child. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Alex Plank from WrongPlanet.net, and Alex has been talking to us about the college experience and certainly making the case for allowing our young adults to go off to college, in fact, encouraging it, and have them go a little ways away so that we can't be there to pick up the pieces for everything. And during the break, I was saying to Alex, you had said that what's the worst thing that could happen? They could flunk out, and that they could learn from it. And I was saying, gee, as a parent, the thing that I'm the most concerned about is that the first thing is that he would be in pain, that he would be lying on the floor crying because he couldn't figure it out. And the other thing that I worry about is him getting hurt or somebody taking advantage of him.
Well, I think all of that is something that is a learning experience. Mm-hmm. I mean, even being taken advantage of is something that's a life lesson. It's better to be taken advantage of when you're in college and you're still available, for him to call up and talk about it than when, he's much older and might have more money to be,
Yes.
People could take advantage of him then,
Yes.
So I think that, and also the crying on the floor thing, it's going to be hard, and I assume that would happen. It depends on the person, but that would happen. So if that's your fear, I think that it's something that you shouldn't be afraid of, but more of, it's a growing experience. Obviously, you don't want that to happen, but right. I think that, and also you're thinking of your kid now.
Of course, that's what I was just thinking. I'm thinking of the 10-year-old, and by then he'll be. Well,
even if your kid is 18 now and is about to go to college, the experience of that is such an altering experience for everyone who goes to college, I think, and I think that you would agree with that when you went to college.
Absolutely.
That it changes people, and I think that basing what you think that he's going to be like, if you base it on what he's like right now, like high school. I mean, obviously your child is not in high school yet, but right. If your child even is in a senior in high school, that's not even accurate. You need to wait and see what happens.
It's really great to hear, Alex, because it makes me open my mind a little bit more to, the fact that I got to give him the wing space to do things. We were going to talk a little bit about social, because in the beginning, the social aspect of college, you said, was hard for you, but eventually you got quite good at it.
And it took. I wasn't good at it even as a senior in college or at university. I would say that it's a continual experience of learning and growing, but college was where I learned the most, because there are so many people. There are 30,000 students at the university, so you worry about making friends. In high school, you have the same group of people, so if you piss them off, and they're going to still not like you. In college, if there's 30,000 people at your university, you can just find another group of friends who don't know anything about you and try again. And eventually you'll learn what to do and what not to do if you try it with enough groups. And obviously you have to be doing that and trying it.
Well, and that leads me to my next question, which is, do you think it's just you, or was there something that you learned that taught you how to persevere with that? Because a lot of people on the spectrum, not on the spectrum, they try something and it doesn't work and they go, well, that didn't work, and they give up. But you seem to me to be somebody who's particularly good at persevering, even in the face of adversity.
I think that most people are able to persevere if given the opportunity. I think in high school you give up because it stops working. If you try to do it the right way, it doesn't work either, because the people already have given you that reputation. You already have that reputation in their minds. When you have new people to work with, it's different, because you have more positive feedback if you do something right in the beginning.
Where did you learn that? Did your parents teach that to you, or
no,
that you just
I've learned that after, just out of
trial and error? Amazing.
But I think that there are a lot of kids who will succeed in college and be able to make friends who had a horrible time in high school. You hear it all the time about these geeks from high school who love college and adult life because now they're actually able to make friends and do well. And all those guys were probably on the spectrum and still are, you know, and they just had a hard time in high school, but were able to deal with it. Once they got to college, they were able to succeed, and people valued them for their interests. You could join clubs that is based on your interests. In high school, there's no robotic club unless you're at a school that has one.
Yeah.
And if you're obsessed with robots and you keep talking about robots to people who don't care, of course they're not going to want to hang out with you because they're bored by it. But if you find a club where everyone else wants to talk about robots, then all those people become your friends.
Absolutely.
Not all of them, obviously, but...
And I would imagine if there are individuals who are just starting college or recently started college, or families that have somebody who's getting ready to go to college, that wrongplanet.net, great resource. If you're having a specific problem, you can write into one of the forums and ask for advice from other people who've been there and done.
And that helped me a lot in college, having that resource. Even though I'm the creator, I still use it.
Well, that's part of the reason why you created it, right? So that you could have a resource. So I would encourage you, if you have questions for Alex, you can be writing them in for Alex or somebody else on the spectrum. Go to wrongplanet.net, participate in all the things that they have there, but in particular the forums, and ask questions, and you can get kind of specific about what it is you need to know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Alex, thank you so much for being here. We'll look forward to having you back. Not next week, because, yes, next week. We are having you back. I was thinking it was Veterans Day, but that's Monday. We'll have you back next week.
Awesome. Perfect.
And so if you have follow-up questions for Alex, if you're watching the recorded version of this and you want to ask him specific things, you can send those questions in advance of him being here on Tuesday mornings. We are going to take a break and come back with our Autism Daily Newscast story of the day. Stick with us.
Hi everyone! Thanksgiving is fast approaching, and we thought it'd be really fun to teach you a gluten-free stuffing recipe with help from Breads from Anna. Now this is a 2-day recipe, and so day 1 we're going to make this bread. Here's what you're going to need. 1 package of Breads from Anna bread mix, 1 packet of active dry yeast, 3 eggs, 1 tablespoon apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons sugar, 1/4 cup of oil, 1/2 cup of warm water, 1 teaspoon ground sage, thyme, rosemary, 1 tablespoon of dried parsley, and then a pinch of tarragon, onion powder, marjoram, and garlic powder. On day 2, when we put the stuffing together, here's what you'll be needing. 6 tablespoons of butter, 1/2 bulb of fennel, 1 chopped onion, 2 chopped carrots, 1/2 cup of gluten-free chicken broth, 1 teaspoon of ground sage, thyme, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt and pepper. All right, step 1, we're gonna dissolve our sugar into our water. And then we're gonna go ahead and add our active yeast. We're gonna dissolve all these together. So we're gonna just set this aside. Now we're gonna take our bread mix right on over to our mixer. So first things first, we're gonna put all our liquids together before we add in our dry bread mix. We're putting in 3 eggs, our oil, apple cider vinegar, water, and our water, yeast, sugar mixture. We're gonna blend these all together. So once our liquids are all mixed together, we're gonna go ahead and add our bread mix. We're also going to add all of our spices now. Okay, now that our bread's been mixed, we're going to spoon this into a bread dish and we're going to let it rise for about an hour. Okay, so now that we've let this rise for about an hour, we're going to bake it at 375 for another hour. All right, it's been an hour, so let's grab our bread out of the oven. We're gonna let this cool for a little bit, and then we're gonna actually cube the bread, and we're gonna toast it in the oven just a little bit longer to dry it out so that when we add it to the vegetables, it'll make a really great stuffing. So as you can see, we've toasted our little breads here in the oven, and now what we're gonna do is saute some of these vegetables so that we can mix it in with the bread and make our final stuffing combination. So we'll start with the butter. So we're going to start with our onions so that we can make sure these are good and cooked before we add the other vegetables. They cook a little bit longer. Okay, those are looking pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and add our fennel, our carrots, our garlic, and then all our spices. So you're going to want to cook this until the carrots especially are nice and soft. Our vegetables are pretty soft here, so what we're going to do is go ahead
and mix this with our bread. We're also gonna go ahead now and add our half a cup of broth. So once these are mixed together, we're gonna go ahead and pour it into our greased baking dish, and we're gonna bake it an additional 20 minutes at 350 degrees. Okay, I think it's ready. La, la, la. All right, and we can add a little garnish here. Perfect, and it's ready for Thanksgiving dinner. To learn how you can win some breads from Anna, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live. Until next time, happy holidays.
Welcome back to Autism Live. In the headlines of the Autism Daily Newscast today, social skills in autistics boosted after magnetic brain wave treatment. Results of the first clinical trial using magnetic wave stimulation on autistic people showed an encouraging boost in the development of social interaction skills after the treatment. The study, conducted by Monash University in Melbourne, Australia, involved boosting brain waves in the frontal cortex using RTMS, or repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation. Strong magnetic pulses were passed to the frontal cortex of the recipient's brains. This part of the brain is proven to be underactive in people with autism and having ASDs. Recipients received treatments for up to 10 minutes per day over a period of 10 days. The team carried out a randomized, double-blind clinical trial, the first of its kind, involving 28 adults diagnosed with either high-functioning autism or Asperger's syndrome. Participants also carried out a number of social interaction tests throughout the trial, which is the first of its kind. Lead researcher Peter Endicott and his team compared the results to a placebo group who did not receive the RTMS. The participants carried out a number of tests of their social skills before the start of the therapy and at the end of the therapy. These showed that those who received the RTMS had significantly improved social skills a month later. Very interesting. There's more to that story, and you can find that by going to www.autismdailynewscast.com. They have other up-to-the-minute autism community news as well. Very interesting study, and it does caution that this is very early stages and that none of us need to stop doing what we're doing to help our children instead of this, but that it is something that they will continue to look at. We are going to take a short break by going to the ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It's called The A Word. In this series, they follow a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. At this point, he has had 2 years of quality ABA intervention in his home, and we see the progress that he has built in those 2 years and how social this little boy has become. Doesn't mean that he's all the way done yet. Remember that an ABA program often can be 2 to 4 years and very intense, but this little boy is showing great strides, great improvement. So take a look. This is The A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Exciting.
I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
We had Lainey checked this week by the regional center, and they say no autism, but she does have a little expressive speech delay. Can you say up, please? Can you say please?
Please.
Good job. Mwah. Jack Riley a kiss? You want to? Oh, here she comes. Give him a kiss. Oh. That's so nice. Can you give him another kiss? Maybe a hug. Can you give Jack Riley a hug? Oh, Jack's giving you a hug. Didn't want to put my head in the sand and think because she's ahead of where Jack was that means she doesn't have any issues.
we're glad we did it. We did it just because our only experience with a child is autism, the A word. And so we didn't know what a typical child is like in our own home. And we're 99.99999% sure we have, now we have a typical example in our house. They're both extraordinary though. She actually has the perfect emotional makeup for a typical sister of a A-word brother. She now that he used to knock her over and stuff, now when he starts to take a step toward her, she just stares at him and screams. Ah! It's hilarious. And he backs down. Can you say please?
Please.
Can you say thank you? Okay. Can you say thank you again? Thank you. Can you say dad? Can you say anti-disestablishmentarianism?
Where's my waffles, Daddy?
You want to make you a new one?
Yes.
Can you look me in the eye and say, yes, please, Dad?
Yes, please.
No, you're not looking at me.
Yes, please, Dad.
Okay, I'll make you another waffle.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with Matt Asner. He is an awesome autism dad, and he also is the executive director of Autism Speaks for Southern California. Welcome back to the show. So thrilled to have you here.
Always good to be here.
And I understand that you have some travel plans.
Yeah, I'm going to Korea on Sunday.
And is this a pleasure trip or
No.
business or both?
Well, I mean, I plan to have pleasure.
You're gonna have a good time, yeah.
While I'm there, I plan on having some Korean barbecue, and I'm going with Andy Scher, who's one of our top scientists
Yes.
at Autism Speaks, and we're going to present to the Korean government. He's presenting on science, and I'm actually going to present on fundraising and awareness.
Wow.
And they have a, for some reason, I guess, the Koreans don't know how to fundraise. It's not in their zeitgeist. They don't fundraise.
That's very
so
interesting.
they want to know, how to build a fundraiser, how to kind of make it work. So I'm going to give a presentation on that and awareness and the importance of awareness. And I'm excited because we know we did a study in Korea recently, about a year ago, that puts the number there, the prevalence number there at 1 in 38.
And
children.
Do we have any clue? Are there any studies being done to figure out why the number is higher?
Yeah, we're doing the studies now. And I think there's. What I find interesting is Korea, like Japan and China, they're for the most part a xenophobic society. And maybe there's something in that is as a result is resulting from the high number. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But we are doing studies.
Well, I think it's remarkable that they've asked you guys to come. To me, this and interesting that they've asked for somebody with science. We want to know more about that. But we know we need more fundraising. This to me sounds very smart.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, what's interesting to me is it is the government, and they realize that they're not going to be able to do it with government dollars alone.
Right.
And I think that's a great step in the right direction for them. So they want to know, how it's working here. How does it work here?
And it's interesting to me that. There's a lot of people, myself included, from time to time, that will complain about the state of autism in the United States. And I think one of my biggest complaints is that it's not a level playing field. I think that some people
Truly not.
have
We were just talking about that, actually, off the air.
Real? Yeah, well.
A little bit.
Yes, we were, as a matter of fact. And, I'm always struck, though, by how much gratitude I should have on for what we do have, because when we hear about the state of autism in other places around the world, it really brings home how far we have to go.
Yeah, I mean, it could be much worse. We could be in France.
Yes.
It's terrible over there. I mean, but I think what we need, though, is we need people to start taking this as a serious issue that it is.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't we have a national plan to deal with
Thank you.
autism?
I mean, that's something that I would like to talk about more, and maybe we should take a break and come back and talk about that, because I
Yeah.
would like to talk about why we don't.
I have strong feelings on that, Shannon.
Yeah, I have strong feelings on that too. And somebody asked me a really life-defining question the other day. They said, if there was one thing that you knew you could do in your lifetime, and that you knew that you personally could get it done, what would you do? And I said I would make sure that there was a federal mandate for every child in the United States to have access to quality therapies for autism. And then I went, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was like, as deeply implanted in me as it was in that moment. And I went, okay, apparently I need to get on the stick here and be doing more than I am doing. So let's talk about why there isn't more of a federal across the board.
I would love to.
Okay, we're going to be back with Matt Asner. You guys can be writing in your thoughts and feelings as well, and stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with Matt Asner, who I love having conversations with. We should really be having our conversations during the break on the air because I think they're a little fascinating, right? And they cover quite a gamut. But we were talking before the break about the state of autism here and the state of autism in other countries. You mentioned that you're going to Korea. One of our viewers wrote in a question. We're going to ask you to send some more information because I'm not sure I understand the question. The question is e-commerce on specific sites of interest to them? I'm assuming that they're talking about the folks in Korea because they go on to say, since they seem uncomfortable with fundraising in our traditional method. So we're going to ask...
I'm such a bad person.
No, mine is about to make noises too. And just a point of clarification, and Matt, you can speak to this too. I don't know that you were saying that it's so much that they're uncomfortable with the way we do it.
They just don't know how to do it.
They don't know how to do it, and they're wanting information about it.
Yeah.
And so in terms of e-commerce on specific sites, maybe we need a little bit more specificity from you about what is it you're talking about, because I'm not sure that I know what you're referring to. So write in more, and then we'll see if we can't address that. But right before we went to break, what kind of partnering training with employers is currently available in Los Angeles for our growing transition population? This is I think this is an unrelated question.
Okay.
All right, let's hang on to that, because I want to talk about a federal mandate, but we'll get to that question in just a few minutes. So I brought up the fact that it bothers me, it keeps me up at night, that there is not a level playing field even here in the United States. It bothers me around the world, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I think, it has to start at home is what my gut feeling is. And I have more say about what happens here than someplace else is my current feeling. And so
You certainly do.
It keeps me up at night that I can be here and that my child can have access to something that another mother in Kansas doesn't have
Or
a
in
prayer
California.
of getting. Or in California.
Yeah.
It's not okay with me.
No. Well, I mean, I think we have for the most part, I think we have a let them eat cake kind of attitude about this kind of stuff. I mean, it's like we were talking about the magnetic imaging, and and I was saying there are places that do that, and it's like $10,000 a month, and it's no one can afford that, no one, I guess hopefully eventually it will become available through places like the regional center or insurance, but it seems years away from that, certainly, I mean, it's only a blind study right now,
right?
So who knows what's going to happen.
I want to know that it works before we start funding it. But we know, for instance, that quality ABA is effective.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's effective in helping all of our kids on the spectrum, because really any of us would benefit from quality ABA. If I had somebody doing ABA with me, my executive function skills would get better.
Absolutely, and you know what? It's still not entirely easy to get.
No, there are lots of people who are watching who write into us on a daily basis.
Absolutely, and there's a maze that they have to go through. They have to, it's
even
difficult.
if the funding piece of the puzzle is there,
right?
And we'll say that it isn't for a lot of people, but even if the funding piece of the puzzle is there, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And it's different hoops for different people. I would love to be able to say, when somebody writes in and says, I want to do ABA, I want to learn more about this, how do I start the process? I would love to have a step 1, step 2, but the first question I have to ask is, where do you live?
Yeah, exactly.
Which to me is disheartening. So what is your feeling about what do you wish would happen?
Well, I'll tell you what I think we need. I think we need a national plan to deal with this, a federal plan. I think we need to address this as the epidemic that it is. To me, it's crazy that we're sitting here with a number like 1 in 88. And it's higher than that. We all know it's higher than that.
1 in 50 school children, and even that's probably conservative.
No, and those numbers, 1 in 88, those numbers are official, but they're old. They're 4 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're talking about numbers that are probably pretty much beyond that by now.
How old is your son?
My son is 11.
So, and my son is 10.
Yeah.
Our children were not included in that study.
Right. No, exactly. And I mean, it took me. We knew something was going on at 18 months. We knew something. He was missing milestones on a regular basis, and we went to, we went through the regional center, and they called him MR, and for years that's what he was, and then UCLA and then Kaiser both diagnosed him as having autism, but he was 5 years old when that happened, within his 5th year, so he was on his way to 6. So that was upsetting. It was very upsetting. That it took that long for us to really get a handle on what was going on. We were certainly on top of the game.
And I'd like to point out, yes, that you're an on it, caring, intelligent, well-spoken, articulate man who had,
who has a brother on the spectrum
and has resources. So it wasn't that you couldn't afford to go to the doctor.
Right.
And what it's like for individuals who English is the second language.
It's Sisyphean. It's crazy. I mean, look, we went to the doctor. We said, hey, you know, there's something going on. He's missing milestones. The doctor just, you know, basically said, oh, no, don't worry about it. It's okay. He's okay. He's okay. You know, he's just got some issues. You know, go to the regional center, deal with it. And I remember he said something. He said something to us once. I think Joyce said, you know, oh, I don't. He's not acting in a normal way. In a normal way. He's not doing things in a normal way. And the doctor said to her, who defines what's normal? And we're just like, what? What are you talking about? It's crazy. But anyway, I think we need a national plan. I think it's imperative. It's an epidemic. We need to treat it like an epidemic. I mean, and I'll say this: if we had 1 in 88 children, I'll go with that number since that's the official number. If we had 1 in 88 children going blind at a year old, if we had 1 in 88 children going blind at a year old, what do you think would be happening?
I think there would be panic in the streets.
Yeah, there'd be fires. People would be setting cars on fires. They would be going crazy because you know what? That's a visual thing. You know, well, ironically so.
Yeah.
It's something that would be, I think, much more scary for people who it's not affecting. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to translate this to people who aren't affected, who don't have a horse in the race yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they have to understand how important it is to nip this in the bud, to take care of these kids, to take care of these adults.
Yeah. And I know it's a question we all ask, what are we going to do to make that happen? And of course, Autism Speaks is at the forefront of trying to make that happen. I was struck by, I think it was yesterday on the drive-in listening to NPR, they were talking about how a huge amount of money was being spent to give to Hollywood to implant within stories that are on television and films about Obamacare, so that we would start to see these stories happen on television. And I thought, isn't that ironic?
It is ironic.
That we're going to pay a whole bunch of money to start to implant these stories so that a wider audience of people will see that. And I love
they should fix the website first.
Well, you know, there is that.
Yeah.
But well, and how about, you know, I have to say that I'm somebody who took pleasure in Ms. Sebelius being on the hot seat, even though it wasn't the subject that I wanted her to be on the hot seat for,
right.
Because behavioral health was part of the 10 essential benefits, and she had it within her power to say that each state had to do that, and she chose not to,
right.
And gave that power back to the states, which is part of the reason why so many of you are not going to have it come January 1st. That's on her shoulders. There's no place for her to pass that buck, and she is no friend of mine because of that. I hope I get to meet her sometime so that I can ask her face to face, why on earth
Absolutely.
did you do that? And do you know what that cost millions of children?
Yeah.
I'm sure that she's got a rationale for it. There must be something, because you don't just do things like that randomly, and I would like an accounting of that.
But right there, I mean, this is why we need a unified voice.
Yes.
This is why we need strength. There's strength in numbers. And for the most part, like I say, autism is invisible. You can't see it. You can't. If it doesn't affect you, if it's not hitting you in the face, it's not there. You know, have you seen Falling?
No.
At the Rogue Machine Theater.
No.
Deanna Gent's play.
No.
You have to go see it.
Okay.
It's amazing. It's a great play about a family and how they're dealing with their son's autism and how it's affecting their family. And it's important for people to see.
Okay.
Because, and the important thing is, they are internalized. So a lot of families just turn the social off.
Oh, that was us.
You know, and once in a while they'll go out, they'll have, you know, friends and family time, but they turn the social off, and they don't go out as a family. They don't go out as a unit, and that's a devastating thing.
Yeah.
That's a devastating thing. You know, you need that in
Absolutely.
order to function fully as a family unit. You know.
There's much to be discussed here. I want to take a break, and then when we come back, I want to focus on what can we, as an individual, what can I do, what can the folks at home do, and we've got a bunch of questions and some clarification on that question.
Great.
So we're going to take a break, and we'll be back more with Matt Asner, so don't go away.
I'm Bryce Myler, and I'm the Contracts Director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I've been here for about 5 years. CARD has several employees with many years of insurance experience, dealing with insurance, dealing with pre-authorizations, dealing with discovering whether there's coverage or not. So we have more experience than any ABA provider that I've ever come across. So for a prospective client, somebody that may be interested in, ABA therapy and what CARD has to offer, we have a special 800 number, and you call that number. They will talk to you about what we have to offer, how ABA works. He'll ask you for the front and back of your ID card, and then we check to see if you do or do not have coverage. If you have coverage for ABA therapy, we try to do whatever we can to set it up where we can bill for you and you don't have to fight with the insurance company every month to get your claims paid. For California residents, we recently did a series of insurance trainings all over the state, and you can click on the link below to watch pretty much the full presentation. It has a lot of information, how you can get your insurance company to comply with what they're supposed to do, understanding the networks, and many other valuable pieces of information.
Welcome back to Autism Live. In the studio with us now is Matt Asner. He is an autism dad, an autism brother, and he's the executive director of Autism Speaks for Southern California. Such a thrill to have him here with us. We're talking about a lot of different topics. We started talking about the fact that you're going to Korea and that you're going to be speaking to them about, you've been invited to come to speak to them about fundraising. So we had a viewer write in a question. We asked for clarification. This is what has come back. For instance, a link to Autism Speaks for Korea and other powerful partners in Korea could create an e-commerce platform to generate revenue as a complement to more traditional methods. The e-commerce platform worldwide is growing at an amazing rate. It is all handled through advanced software that is available for purchase, very easy to implement. Which all sounds very, very fascinating.
I mean, look, I mean, we Autism Speaks, we rely heavily on e-commerce, heavily, and it's certainly a component for anyone who wants to get into fundraising. That's a heavy component of what's going to work for them.
I would imagine that if Korea wanted to do an Autism Speaks walk in Korea, that would be something that Autism Speaks would
Well, that's why, and that's one of the reasons we're going there. We're going to help them do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
Because it's only going to help the world if we can reach out and talk to people and help people in all countries.
Absolutely. I mean, it comes up all the time about the fact that autism knows no boundaries. It doesn't matter what religion you are, what your belief system is, what color your skin is, what your background is, what your ethnicity is. Autism is around the world.
Yeah, and they've been the Korean government has been extremely involved in our international efforts, and they've been very involved.
Which is good to hear, because obviously they need to be concerned, as does everyone, as we were just talking about. Now, we did have another question that came in from a viewer. What kind of partnering training with employers is currently available in Los Angeles for our growing transition population? And they said thank you. So I want to make sure that we got to that. You've been doing you had a town hall meeting recently, and had some employers there that were talking about
6 small businesses that were employing people on the spectrum and actually seeing growth in their companies because of it. So great examples of what we need to, this hump that we need to get over with other employers. So we need to use them as an example for other employers so they can understand that just because someone's on the spectrum doesn't mean they're not going to be a great employee. In fact, everyone that we talk to, even the companies that did not come out and do the town hall, they all said the same thing. They've never had a more honest employee. They've never had a more on-time employee, a more dedicated employee. So, it's something that this is new. This is unfortunately a very new thing because we have so many adults, children coming into adulthood now.
Yeah.
Who are on the spectrum, that it is this is a very pressing need. So, I mean, you have programs like the CIP, the College Internship Program. Help Group is got an interesting transition program,
we talk a lot here on the show about inclusion films and Exceptional Minds.
Exceptional Minds is amazing because what they're doing is so is Inclusion Films.
Yeah.
But Exceptional Minds is actually giving you something tangible that you can go out there and use. You know, in your search for employment, which is a certificate, you know, from Adobe, which is incredible.
It is incredible. We actually, because we've had so much happen, our show has exploded to a certain extent that we needed to hire an intern, and we did hire an intern from Inclusion Films. There, at Exceptional Minds, you know, there are comparisons between the two of them because they're both dealing with things that are entertainment-based, which is what we need. But Exceptional Minds, it's sort of a beginning-to-end 3-year program that you graduate from, whereas Inclusion Films, you know, it's a slightly different. And
well, yeah. I mean, Inclusion Films, you're out there and you're actually on a set all the time,
and they train, and they have a very specific program to have interns go into a job, and they still provide support, that kind of thing that you're talking about, and but we love both of those programs. They're just vastly different, and they work for different demographic. But we hired an intern from Inclusion Films, and he was amazing. In fact, he was so amazing that the networks hired him away from us.
Who was it?
I don't know that I can necessarily say, but he was really wonderful.
Everyone I've ever met from that group, they're all incredible people.
And then we went to hire another intern from Inclusion Films, but he was already being hired away too. So, but we did put it out there about a week and a half ago that we were looking to hire another intern, and we said we would take an autism parent. It's just an internship, you understand, but working on Final Cut Pro, and you have to be somebody who's local, and we're still interviewing. We have 2 interviews this week, but if you know somebody who's on the spectrum and you think that could work, it's only like a 10 to 15 hour a week internship, and they would be learning Final Cut Pro.
Alex might know someone. Did you talk to him?
I didn't bring it up to Alex. I should have, but I would imagine that if Alex knew somebody, they'd be working for Alex. But I'll ask him. You know, it's a commodity in our field that, you know, finding somebody who has that interest and those skills, because as you said, and as Joey Travolta, who runs Inclusion Films, he says, I don't understand why somebody wouldn't be trying really hard, because they're the best employees, individuals who are on the spectrum, conscientious, very mindful of how do you want this done. I want to follow the rules. Dream employee.
Yeah, they stay in the lines.
Yes, which is why the network hires them away from us. I can't do much about that, and we couldn't be anything but happy for him. But nonetheless, we were left without an intern. So, in any case, you mentioned that you had a story to tell about a visit to get haircutting. So let's take a break and come back and do that. Stick with us. We'll be right back with Matt Asner.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity of
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with Matt Asner from Autism Speaks. He's the executive director of the Southern California region, a big region, big responsibility there. But notably, you are also a dad and a brother, and you have a story to tell about a trip to go get a haircut recently.
Yeah, well, I have a girlfriend who has a 5-year-old son on the spectrum, and
Of course you do.
Yeah, I know.
Of course you do.
And a lot of trouble with the hair cutting, a lot of trouble. And I think a lot of anxiety from both the mom and the son. And problematic when you get into the hair cutting place and it just, I think they've been thrown out of a couple places. I mean, and this is a very common thing. I mean,
it's an
and
issue.
Autism Speaks has a hair cutting toolkit. I mean, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's just I think it's scary for any child to have a haircut. It's scary for me to have a haircut.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like the feeling of it,
Yeah.
Maybe
I
that
can't say
says
that I
something, I
love
don't
to
know.
go get my hair done. It's not my favorite thing
No.
either. So.
And that's why I have the mop that I have.
You have wonderful hair.
Oh, thank you. I was searching for a compliment.
There you
Thank
go.
you very much.
There's your compliment.
But I told her, I said, well, let's really try and do this. Let's try and get a haircut. And I said, but the one thing we have to do is you have to not be there. So we had her wait outside. And I brought him inside, and he's a big kid. He's strong, really strong. 5 years old, but he's strong as an ox. And so we got in there, and he started, thinking. First of all, I thought we were at the dentist.
Oh.
That was a big
Equally
problem.
horrifying.
Exactly. And I told him we weren't at the dentist, we're at the hair cutting, and we had cookies for him, for afterward, and I showed him the cookies, and I said, if we get a haircut, you can have these cookies.
Now, I have to interrupt for a second. Did you take him to one of the run-of-the-mill places where they have the old-fashioned chairs, or did you take him to one of the decked-out places where they have airplanes?
No,
and
Supercuts.
Okay.
Supercuts. And they all kind of, we walked in, and it was mayhem from the minute we walked in.
Oh, dear.
And, there are people in there, and they're all like, it's a wonderful exercise in patience from everyone involved. But the woman who took us in understood what was going on, I think, a little bit, and I sat him on my lap, and we started, and he was really nervous, and started with the scissors, and then graduated to the buzzers, the clippers, and we just decided, let's just take it all off because that's what's going to work.
Okay.
So we did, and it was rough a couple times. I thought for a couple times, I thought, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I got a little worried. And then the funny thing is, this is hilarious. So the woman that's cutting his hair, she's basically cut with a number 2 buzzer, from here on right here.
Right.
And then she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, I need to go." And I said, "What are you talking about? What do you mean you need to go?" And she goes, "I have to go pick up my son." And I said, she goes, "I'll find someone else to do this." And I said, No, you're doing it, and we're finishing this right now because, and she sees, this child is upset and wants to leave and in a very desperate way. And I couldn't believe that she was like saying, "Oh, well, we have to switch now." And I thought, okay, but he did great. He did great.
And it sounds like you did great.
I did well, but he did great.
Well, he was
a superstar.
I have to say, there are a lot of individuals who are out there right now who are watching who are single parents of kids who are on the spectrum. And I want to point out that there are lots of stories that we tell ourselves about, what's there for us in the future. And I don't know how long you and your girlfriend have been together, but stop and consider that at some point she was a single mom with a child on the autism spectrum who's got some big issues and thinking, okay, I would imagine that she thought at some point the thought occurred to her, it's going to be really hard to find somebody to be happy with, that maybe the romance part of my life is going to be on hold or over. And look at the fabulous man that she found who gets it and was willing to take her hair for a kid for a haircut and to go through that. You're kind of Prince Charming right now to me and everybody else.
Well, actually, I can say it's not about, it's not about her child. I love her children.
It's
They're
just
amazing kids. It's coincidental.
Right.
And we met. I've known her family for a very long time, and it just kind of happened, and it was a wonderful thing because I've never been happier. So,
which is a lovely thing, and
That's
it
great.
shows on you. But I just want to point out that sometimes we tell stories to ourselves that, oh, because of something, whatever it is, fill in the blank. Oh, I won't be able to have happiness. I won't be able to have somebody who understands. I won't have somebody who loves me. And just pointing out that maybe that isn't the truth.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Well, that's a happy thing.
It is a happy thing.
It is a happy thing, and I love
And
being
I'll
able
just
to
say
point
this.
that-
I'll add this. You can never, ever, ever, no matter how bad things are, lose hope. Because hope is what drives us. It's our fuel.
Yeah.
It's what pushes us to do things that we normally wouldn't do. It's what pushes us to go out as a family unit
Yes.
when it's scary and
Yes.
it's hard. Hope is everything.
Absolutely. We talk about hope a lot. It's come up a lot in the last week. I'm welling up thinking about it because Nancy Osbaugh Jackson said to me on a phone conversation last week, and she said, well, that's when I brought up my favorite four-letter word. And she was talking about something that was really trying, and I said, oh my gosh, what's your I felt like James Lipton. What's your favorite curse word, right? And she said, my favorite four-letter word is hope.
Yeah.
And I
It's a
went,
great
well,
word.
there it is. There it is.
'Cause,
And it's something we're all entitled to.
Because I'm telling you right now, hope saved my life. Because I didn't have hope for a year and a half or so after my son was diagnosed. I had lost everything. My hope was out the window. And once I got it back, it solved everything for me.
Yeah. Everything is possible when you have hope.
Absolutely.
And
you need hope.
Yes. And so we all hold hands and say, together, we can do this, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk more with Mr. Asner. Stick with us. Hi, we're here with Temple Grandin, and we're going to be asking her some of your questions that you guys have written into us. First of all, Temple, I want to thank you for being with us here today.
it's good to be here.
This is a question that I want to know. When you went to the Emmys and you went to all these different events and you were there in your wonderful shirt, was there anybody who tried to talk you into wearing something else, or did they just understand that you needed to be who you were?
Well, I think being eccentric is just fine. I dressed eccentric at the Emmys. Eccentric's fine. Being a filthy slob is not fine. Let's look at the latest Mars rover. You got the Mohawk guy that's the head of the expedition. You got the Elvis guy that figured out how to land on the moon and he wears Elvis outfits. I think that's just fine. But you can't be a rude, filthy, dirty slob. That's the thing where draw the line. Eccentric's fine. I remember a guy who was on the spectrum and he taught astronomy at a local college. And he had beautiful astronomy t-shirts and he had long hair with a ponytail this long. And I said to him, don't let anybody cut your ponytail off. Wear it with pride, but it must be washed and it must be clean.
There you
and
go.
neat.
Love it. Did they try to talk you into wearing a dress, or they knew
Oh no, nobody knew I would wear a dress. I got too much of a farmer tan and would just look just terrible. No, you're not going to get me an evening gown. I did buy some new black pants. I'm going to wear it tonight.
Well, I thought you looked great.
Well, I want to let you know about the shirt award of the Emmys.
Yeah.
That was a Ralph Lauren shirt.
there
Okay,
you go.
fashion snobs. And that was a gift from my sister for Christmas.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So much to talk about. Thank goodness we have a little bit of time here. We were just showing a clip with Temple Grandin and somebody that both Matt and I have had the opportunity to interview. And of course, we're here with Matt Asner, Autism Dad, Autism Brother, Executive Director of Autism Speak Southern California. So you were saying that you got to interview Temple and you have a funny story.
Yeah, we were at, she was at a Jerry Lundy's Pasadena conference, and we had the chance to interview her. So we sat in the room and talked with her for an hour. And so I have all these great questions that I've been that I've been wanting to ask her, and so I'm just chomping at the bit, and I'm started asking her these questions, and she says to me, she looks at me and she goes, "You're asking me all these abstract questions," and she said, "I don't even know how to answer them." I mean, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's still on the Autism America archive. I think you can find it, but and it's true.
Yeah,
it's really true, and." It was one of my lessons about talking with someone on the spectrum is that you cannot ask these abstract questions. You cannot speak in the code that we all speak in, and expect anyone to understand or take your lead, in terms of questioning. So
she's really remarkable. She gave me marriage advice.
Really?
Yes, she did. And it's funny, I was just talking with somebody about this yesterday because they were saying, how many times have you met Temple? And I was talking about this first time. Of course, I don't know why I'm the queen of this, that if I'm interviewing somebody and then we take the cameras down, that's when something incredible happens.
It's what kind of law is that? It's like Murphy's Law or whatever.
Murphy's Law or whatever. But we've been with her for a while, and we were all done, and we were finished, and they took the cameras down, and she began to give me marriage advice. And it was the most amazing, because she's very interested. If you meet her and you say that you're a parent of a child on the spectrum, she wants to know everything about your child.
No, that's very true.
And she wants to be helpful and supportive. And so she'd already asked me some questions about my son, but then she said to me, let me ask you something. And she said, do you and your husband ever take time to go? And she said, my mother and I are very interested in this because my mother is really wanting to help the parents of kids with autism, and we're noticing a trend. And do you and your husband ever take time to go do something and have it be nothing about autism? And I gave her this blank look like, what you talking about, Willis? Because no, like there's something other than autism. I said,
she's so right though.
And I said, it's just really, I said, actually, that's something we talk about on the show, Temple, is that, I've asked parents, how do you arrange for babysitters? How do you go to events? Because I'm looking for advice. It's not that I have any to give. I want to be able to do that, and that I haven't figured out how you actually really do that with any regularity. And she looked at me and she said, okay, but see, this is important. And you're going to need to do this for your relationship, so let's break it down. And she gets out a piece of paper and she's asking me, so what do you think the big holdups are? And so I start going through it, and she's like, so what are we going to do about that? And she's problem solving how for my husband and I to go on a date.
She's a therapist.
And at one point, I started to kind of giggle, and she, looked at me and she said, "What's funny?" And I said, "I'm having a surreal moment. I'm here with Temple Grandin, and she's giving me marriage advice." and she looked at me, and she got the joke too, and she said, "Well, I'm a problem solver. That's what I do." And she said, "I don't have to be somewhere and be in the middle of something to see it from all sides." And the other moment was when I said to her, "Now, Temple, you're still teaching, right?" And she said, "Oh, yes." And everything about, we have this stereotype of Temple. Mm-hmm. Everything sort of slipped away, and she said, "It's really important to me as a woman that I get to teach." And I felt like, I totally, like, my heart beat a little bit faster, and she said, it's what I'm really passionate about. I'm training the next generation of people to understand how to deal with cattle management. It's really important to me. And let's face it, if I weren't somebody who was doing this at this level, none of you would want to talk to me.
Well, she's probably got a point. I mean,
yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but
I thought, it's interesting that she's that self-aware, but no, I'd still want to talk to her. She's
of course
really amazing.
Of course, but
I get her point.
You would.
Yeah.
But would she be the superstar?
Right.
That she is.
Well, they wouldn't be making an HBO film.
No.
Let's say
exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Let's say that.
Exactly.
But an incredible, incredible woman, and if you get an opportunity to see her speak, I encourage you to do it because she's an absolute inspiration.
She's incredible.
Okay, we said we were going to talk about something, and now it's flown completely out of my head.
It's flown out of my head.
Let's take a break, and we'll figure out what it was that we were going to come back and talk about. Stick with us.
Oh, I know what it is.
Okay.
Just go like this. Can you see me? Puedes mirarme aquí? Okay. Hi, I'm Rebecca Ishida. Say hi, Ethan.
Hi.
My son was diagnosed with autism in November 2004. With Ethan, almost immediately, we noticed things that were troublesome, that he just didn't sleep. He would vomit in the crib. There were a lot of sensory issues.
Then you'd have like 20 of the trains lined up, and if you came in and took one train out, just meltdown completely.
Guttural instinct is to think that there's nothing wrong. Who wants to look at their child and go, there's something wrong with that child? You don't. You always want to see the best in your child.
Will my kid be able to go to school? Will he interact with his peers? Will he be able to have a healthy relationship? Will he get married? I really thought that autism was like a death sentence. A lot of hope was given to me through CARD. This was my third agency and the best agency we had. And there was no way in the world I was going to give up CARD because of the gains I saw Ethan was having.
Yeah, you did it!
And I remember when Doreen saw us for the evaluation, she says, but by the time he's 6, he will be recovered. And that's exactly what happened.
I'll fix that.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Matt Asner, and we remembered what we wanted to talk about. We want to talk a little bit more about hope.
Yeah.
And we were having a conversation during the break about the fact that there are doctors out there who feel it is their duty, and they really feel this very strongly, that when an individual is diagnosed with autism, to give a certain set of facts, and they take it really personally if they don't want to give any kind of false hope.
Well, it becomes extremely clinical. And unfortunately, for the parents, that's not what they need at that time. It's like you're being told that every hope that you have is invalid, and you've got to come up with new hopes, basically.
Yeah.
And you don't need a doctor telling you, oh, and this is what happened to me.
Yeah, tell them what the doctor said to you.
My son's mother. They said, your son's never going to have a job. He's never going to be able to live on his own. He's never going to be able to, be the kid that you wanted him to be. And I'm sitting there open, with my mouth open, just going, what? How? First of all, I don't care what kind of doctor you are, if you're telling someone that they have cancer, or if you're telling someone that their child has autism, you cannot take away someone's hope, because that is your medicine. That is your medicine. You need that medicine to get through the next life.
Yeah.
You need it to get through your life. And I don't care if it's, the biggest truth ever. You've got to let someone have some hope, because otherwise, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Why are we here? Why are we here? There's no good answer. You need hope. I mean, obviously, one reason we're here is to make sure that parents have resources and kids have resources and people have the strength to carry on and move forward in a supportive way. But you cannot let that hope go.
Yeah.
Because you need it.
Absolutely. And I think one of the greatest crimes is that in that moment, as a parent, you're most vulnerable. You're here and somebody is saying, this is what your child, this is why, we're going to give it a name, and here are the expectations, and you are not yet the informed person that you like. If somebody were to say that to me now and look at my child and say, your child's never going to get a job, I would say, have you met Alex Plank?
Exactly.
Have you met Alex Plank? Because
there's another kid that I know, amazing young man named Jay Lighton. I don't know if you've ever met him.
No, I've heard about him.
He just graduated Davis, and now he's at USC. Unbelievable. And he told me, he actually was a schoolmate of my brother. And he told me when he was 13, I think, or maybe a little younger, he could not get out of the bathtub by himself. Okay? So you need hope.
Yes.
You need hope. You cannot do this without hope.
Yeah.
It's impossible. And you mentioned a story. I hope I can mention this. You mentioned a story to me about Doreen being somewhere.
Yes.
And someone saying
Dr. Gramsci.
and someone saying, how dare you give people false hope.
Yes.
And what a ridiculous statement. I'm sorry. People are going to get mad at me about that maybe. But, it is a ridiculous statement because you need hope.
We all need hope, and we just showed the Mission Possible, and we were looking during the break at Ethan's story, and I was saying he is a remarkable young boy and truly amazing. And if you have the opportunity to hear Ethan speak, Ethan is the same age roughly. I think he's a year older than my son, and I always feel like it's my responsibility to say, like a lot of the weight loss commercials, they'll show the person who says, I lost 80 pounds in 6 weeks, and they say, results, not typical of everyone. And I always like to point out that just like our kids come in all different, they all are going to be different. And, my child, it did not have the same thing happen that Ethan happened, but my son had his own miracle.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. And for me, the most liberating thing as a father for me, a father of someone on the spectrum, was to make a shift from hoping that my son heads a company or becomes president of the United States, or all these fantasies that you have as a father.
Yeah.
Is captain of his football team or hockey team, actually. You have these fantasies. So when I shifted to the most important thing for me is that my son is happy.
Yeah.
Finds a way, not just to be happy, but to make himself happy. If I can find a way and give him the juice and give him the ability to make himself happy, then I'll have done my job.
Yep.
And I still pray for that every day. I hope for that every day. And I think he will.
Yeah.
But it's not, I can't stop working until he does.
Right. And I think, and to bring this all full circle as we finish up here, I know that you also, as have I, and as have a lot of people on this show, also had that moment of, okay, I'm doing that for my child, but I also want to do something for all the kids to level the playing field. And so we said at some point, we were going to ask you, what can we all be doing to work towards a national policy for autism?
Good, like full circle segue, right?
Full circle moment there.
Well, I mean, look, I think we need to be unified and work together as a unit. So I think Autism Votes is a great way of learning about initiatives, working towards certain things, and finding out when to call your leaders. I certainly think Autism Society does a great job. They did a great job with the self-determination bill. Amazing. Yeah. So we need to make sure we get to those mailing lists, get on those mailing lists, and realize that we need to push this stuff. Because people need to know that they need to make us happy.
Yeah.
We're a huge constituency. We're a big group of people.
Yeah.
And we're not just autism parents. We're autism uncles and aunts
and
cousins
the key right there.
And sisters and brothers and grandparents. And when you add that all up, that's a huge number.
Yeah.
And we're doing a March on Washington coming up, and you can find out about it on the website. I don't have it on me because I didn't know I was going to say that. But I'll come back and we'll talk about that.
Okay, I'd love to know more about that.
But if you go to autismspeaks.org, you can see that there's going to be a March on Washington. We're going to ask for this. For this national plan, and it's important for everyone to ask for that, to demand it.
Yeah, I do think it's important. I talk about this with my son all the time. If you don't ask for what you want, your chances of getting it are greatly diminished.
Absolutely.
And you got to ask in a way that can be heard. That's the other thing.
Exactly. And not be misconstrued as crazy or
right?
we have to do this in a responsible way.
Yeah.
But we need to be loud.
Yes.
We really need to be loud.
And I will say for my part, I do think it starts at home first. And when you were talking before about how a lot of times families just turn down the social dial, I will say that I made a strategic error when my son was diagnosed with autism that I decided to kind of shut my shutters. I stayed in enough contact with my friends that they thought I hadn't fallen off the radar, but I didn't share what we were going through.
Yeah.
I really went to ground with it, and I tried to make it look like everything was okay.
Yeah.
I am not an adult child of an alcoholic, but I'm an adult child of an adult child of an alcoholic. And so, and it was the first time in my life that I was like, we're going to make it look like it's okay, even when it's not. And I would encourage all of you not to do that.
Yeah.
Share with your friends and family.
Open your
I try
world.
to now.
Yeah.
Let them see the worst of it so that they get it.
Yeah. And I go back to this play that's at the Rogue Machine Theater, Falling. Is it Falling or Falling? I'm sorry.
We'll find out about it. We'll try to get them on the show.
I'll
love to.
I'll do that.
We would love
I'll
that.
make sure that happens.
Okay.
But you're dealing with the family dynamic. You're dealing with the mother and the father who do an amazing job, but there's not, very difficult son, aggressive son, who's an adult. And there are issues with the grandmother comes and she demands she wants to be at the house because she feels that it's, she wants to show that she's supportive, and it's an impossible situation. And the sibling situation, and the problem with her, it was a sister, feeling left out and neglected, and this is a big issue, and it's just an amazing play that is very hard to watch at times, but I think really worthwhile. Worthwhile.
I want to have him on the show. So we'll work towards that.
Yeah.
This has been a really fascinating discussion, and I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to have this talk.
Always fun.
And we have you again next Tuesday?
No, I'll be in Korea next Tuesday.
Okay.
So then the Tuesday after that.
Okay. Because I know at some point you got to take a little bit of time off too because you've been working so hard.
No, but I always have time for you.
Okay.
So
All
this
right.
is this.
You heard it here.
To me,
He said it.
This is something that I always want to do.
Okay. So we will see you a week from Tuesday.
Week from Tuesday.
That will be the Festival of Toys. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Oh, fun.
All right.
I love
So we'll have to ask you to tell us what favorite toys in your house. So be
Okay.
thinking about that.
All right.
All right. So we're going to take a break. We're going to say goodbye to Matt. We're going to take a break and come back and finish out the show. Stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, where is he? What is he doing? Is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What
yes.
did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that,
We wouldn't be able to receive the service dog, so we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, Act Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear Act Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. You know, we underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Every Tuesday we try to give you a healthy eating tip, and of course our subject this week is about holiday strategies, things that we can do to be preparing for the holidays. And I've said that we're going to be using antecedent modifications, trying to get there ahead of time. So this is the week that we want to get a plan for what kinds of things we're going to be doing, at least for Thanksgiving, if not for all the holidays coming up, whether you celebrate Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever it is, having a plan, because I guarantee you that no matter what your dietary restrictions are right now, there is a substitution plan for everything that you want to have for your holiday tradition, whether it's how to make a GF-CF turkey, which is a very easy thing to do, by the way, or even pumpkin pie or stuffing mixes. We have a great stuffing mix that Emily is doing right now on the show with the breads from Anna mix. So no matter what it is your favorite thing, I guarantee you somebody has a replacement dietary recipe for it online. You can go and just Google it, or you can go to Pinterest. There are great pins for GF-CF holiday things, and there's a wonderful magazine called Living Without, and a lot of times they will specify and say, you know, this is a GF-CF, or it's just GF, but great holiday recipes, everything including sugar cookies, cut out sugar cookies. But the one thing that we all know, if you're trying to eliminate or substitute, you must practice. So this is a great week to go and try out some of these different things and bring it home. Do it one thing at a time. So maybe this is the next 2 days you try out a pumpkin pie recipe and you see, okay, this is how it works. Or, the next time I would do this slightly differently, so that by the time the holiday comes, you've already tried it out, you know what you want to try differently, and you've given your child an opportunity to try it and see if they like it. Because if they don't like it, why would you go to all that expense and time and trouble to do it, right? So get a plan and look through, it's great, the old magazine hunting, but now you do it online. Get some recipes, try something out in the next couple of days, and make sure that if you're going to be with other people, that you have a plan to have your food. It's so easy for things to get cross-contaminated. I don't know how many times I've made something GF-CF and had it just in one bowl, set it on the table, and somebody comes along with a spoon from something else and sticks it right in it. So make sure you have portioned out what you or the person in your family needs to have so that you're covered. Get the plan, and then you don't have to be scurrying the last minute. Guarantee that it will really be helpful, and there are so many things out there this year for holiday. You're gonna love it. All right, so that's our healthy eating tip for today. We will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday, and on Wednesday it's very exciting around here. We have Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grandpichet will be here to take your questions live. There are already some in the feature that I'm saving for when she's here, but now's a great time to be writing them in for tomorrow. So that will be first thing tomorrow. And then it's Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. You won't want to miss that show. Very exciting, some topics that we're going to be talking about. So until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.